welcome to Chamber Chat. Deb and I are excited to have a special guest today from Just Drive Inc. This is Greg Lavallee, and he's going to tell us all about how they got started, their mission, and bits and pieces of what we want to know as community members about Just Drive.
All right. Well, thank you for having us, Kristina. I appreciate it. We're excited to talk to the Monticello business community.
Absolutely. And it's a special location too. Monticello Auto Body has so graciously allowed us to use their garage today and even pulled in kind of a demo car that will fit into Just Drive Inc.'s theme and what we're going to learn about. So this is a special off-site location interview today. Well, we have some questions just to kind of get us started. So I'll start with the first one. So Just Drive has become a key voice in the conversation about safe driving. Can you walk us through how the organization began and the need you saw in the community that led you to step in?
Yeah. So, well, many people may not know unless they've been around Monticello for a while, but we did lose our son to a distracted driver in 2013. And that was really the catalyst for it all. Really changed everything for my wife and my family. And as things came about, we found out what caused the crash. We really started to look at driving differently. It was actually Philip's track coach that proposed the idea of a day to shine a light on distracted driving. And so we actually got together with friends and family and started up Just Drive Day. Started up just as that one day, and then it evolved where I started doing presentations, and both to driver's ed classes as well as businesses.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
I think we started about 2 years after Philip was killed, so about 2015. It's been an annual event every year doing the Just Drive Day event. It's evolved in a lot of different ways, and we started a social media page, continue to do the presentations, and it's been really good to reach out and try to make some good come from this.
When people hear distracted driving, they often think of texting, right? But what are some other common distractions you see that people might not even realize are dangerous?
Right, that's a good question. You see all sorts of things, right? You got people putting on makeup and grooming. I saw a guy with a hipster beard one time combing his beard. Maybe it needed it, but not at that time while he was driving. But the one I like to focus on, because there's so many, it's anything other than the task of driving, right? But the one I like to focus on is actually talking on the phone, because there's this hands-free law out there, and so people tend to think that, gee, it's legal, it must be safe. The reality is actually quite different from that. If you look at some of the studies, and a National Safety Council actually did this, they looked at 30 different studies on talking on the phone. And what they found is that there's no difference in the crash risk between hands-free and handheld driving. You're 4 times more likely to get in a crash, whether you're hands-free or handheld. And that's because it's a cognitive distraction. If you're talking to somebody on the phone, you're not thinking about driving. So if you don't believe me on this or those studies, check out the episode of Mythbusters where they actually looked at distracted driving. They had a group of people, I think there was 5 or 6 people, that they had drive around on a course, and they timed them, and then they had them drive around on the course while talking on the phone, and they timed them and rated their driving. And then they fed them some booze and had them do the same. And all 6 of them actually did worse while talking on the phone than while drunk. Now, that's not to say drive drunk, obviously, but it does point out how distracting talking on the phone can be.
How there is a very significant impairment.
There is, yeah.
Truly, with also talking on the phone, whether you're hands-free or
Yes.
holding it.
And actually, when you look at the crash risk, you're 4 times more likely to get in a crash talking on the phone. Happens to be the same as when you're at the 0.08 blood alcohol of the drunk driving statute. So it's actually pretty similar in terms of the crash risk.
So many drivers feel real confident just quickly looking at their phone or thinking they have the ability to do those quick multitasking pieces. But what do you wish people understood about how quickly a normal drive can turn dangerous?
So if you look at the engineers who are designing cars, and when they're looking at where they're putting buttons and things like that, the number they talk about is 2 seconds. If anything is going to take your eye off the road for 2 seconds, that puts you in trouble territory. So it's just so simple to think about that way. Most people that text or try to dial a phone or whatever it is, it takes longer than that, right? So you need to just keep your focus on that task of driving. There's just no getting around it. You'll never get those 2 seconds back if something bad happens, like what happened here.
Yep, this car they had shared with us definitely got into a fender bender.
Yeah,
Distracted driving fender bender.
that's what I heard, and it's a perfect example, and it doesn't look probably like somebody badly hurt in this case, but this is going to cost them a bunch of money, so there's an economic cost to those choices as well. Hopefully they were lucky enough that nobody got hurt anyhow. If you're attentively driving, you are constantly scanning the roadway, checking your mirrors, and you're thinking about what you might have to do to respond. If you're talking on the phone, you're not doing that. I always like to use the example when I'm talking to teens at the driver's ed classes about my own experience. I adopted cell phones pretty early. I drive from Monticello to Bloomington. I have been doing it for 35 years. And when cell phones came about, I thought that was pretty cool. I could talk on the phone. And I remember how I'd pull in after driving home from work, driving 494 all the way around through that traffic, and I'd pull into my driveway and I'd think, man, this is great. I don't even remember my drive. The reason I didn't remember my drive is I wasn't thinking about driving that entire time. I was talking to my mom or my brother or maybe even some salespeople for work. So it's a thinking task.
How can other businesses, schools, and community organizations like the Chamber partner with Just Drive to help spread this message further?
Yeah, I think there's lots of ways. I mean, number one, when I think about it, is just setting the example themselves. I like to think that business leaders, community leaders, school leaders, if they're doing something, other people are going to pay attention to that. And so setting the example of being a safe driver themselves, number one, and calling out others that aren't. Number two, they can engage with the organization through our Facebook page, like our page, and share our stuff. I actually have a standing meeting for myself every morning. I get to Bloomington early to avoid traffic. I have this standing thing where I check the Facebook page to see if any posts have come about, and I share and like those. And that's how social media really works, right? You need people to do that. So if businesses and leaders and school leaders would do that, that would be huge. They can also have me for presentations. I'd love to come talk to any business. I've spoke to groups as small as 2. I'd rather have more than that, but that's always something I like to do. If I can cater a presentation for students or a business, I can make it 15 minutes or I can make it 50 minutes. It really doesn't matter. I like to include obviously an emotional message to get people's attention, to kind of tell my story. And then I get into a little bit of statistics, but not much. Mostly I like to talk about the science behind distraction and really help people understand what it is. I'm an engineer. I actually geek out on the science side of this stuff a little bit. I've read a lot of the really heavy studies, and because of my math background, I understand a lot of the statistical analysis they do.
So what's one simple change you'd love every viewer to make the very next time they get in the car?
Actually, I think the number one thing I would love to see people do is use their do not disturb while driving. That's already available in their cell phones. If you've got an Apple phone, check out the do not disturb while driving feature. It can be a little tricky to get set up, and once it's set up, then it works. I like to think of it as kind of a triple benefit. Number one, you're going to be a safer driver. You can set it up so it's automatic, and if somebody sends you a message or calls you, it kind of disables all the notifications so you won't even know it. And it'll send them a message. So it kind of gets you off the hook, right? You think you got to immediately respond. Well, the phone's going to do it for you.
Well, guess I need to get an Apple phone.
You can do it on Android as well. There's a drive mode in Android. Yeah.
I used to have a car that did that for me. It auto-responded every time I got a message. But then I switched cars. So conversations about safe driving can be tough, especially with teens. What advice do you have for parents or guardians who want to talk with young drivers about staying focused on the road?
I think where it really starts, especially with teens, is as a parent setting a good example. Look back to when my kids were younger and they were in hockey and whatnot, and we were driving around, and I was teaching my kids to drive distracted. You know, they were watching me talk on the phone, eating French fries and whatever else I chose to do back in those days. It doesn't need to be that way. You can teach your kids to be safe drivers by keeping your attention on the road and not doing those things. So I think that's really where it starts. And when I do driver's ed classes, I always make this a part of the presentation. I ask them how many, after going through a few things, I get them all to, raise their hand when I ask them if their parents drive distracted. And just about every kid in the class will raise their hand. And I'll just look at them and I'll say, do not follow your parents' example. And they kind of look at me. But I do it for emphasis, and I say, obviously they're good people and you should follow their example in most ways, but not in distracted driving. As a society, we've been teaching our kids to drive distracted. It's got to change.
Well, hopefully that message then those kiddos went home and said, hey, parents.
And I follow that up with, you can respectfully talk to your parents about this when you go home, and you can, tell them, hey, Mom, Dad, it makes me feel unsafe when you do that. I heard a quote from, I think it was one of the higher ups at the National Highway Safety Administration once. And he said, if you save one life, you save a whole world. And from my own experience, that really spoke to me, because my whole world has been changed by this.
For everyone watching this Chamber Chat episode, what's the most important commitment you'd like them to make today to Just Drive, and how can they stay connected with your organization?
Most important. I mean, again, use the app, Just Drive, the Do Not Disturb While Driving function in their Apple phone, or the drive mode in an Android phone. But make that commitment. Go out today and just don't use your phone. I think that's number one. But if you want to stay in touch with our organization, go to our Facebook page. I guess I should tell you what that is. It's Just Drive Day, all one word. If you search for that on Facebook, you'll find us. And like our page, and follow and share the updates when you can. And then obviously, we're a nonprofit, and so while you're there, if you can jump over to our webpage, we've got some links for doing donations through PayPal, or you can download a form and print it and submit that to us. It'd be a great opportunity as well to consider having me come and do a presentation. I'd love to do it. Yeah, we all have busy lives. I know that as well as anyone commuting to Bloomington and whatnot, and you're always looking for those extra minutes in a day. Don't get them from your drive. Even people that are in sales and things like that, they've done studies on this, and most salespeople who shun the phone eventually, their numbers don't change. In fact, oftentimes they get better, because you're more attentive when you're not driving, and you're able to actually follow up on things and make sure you make the right notes.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us on Chamber Chat. It's been truly a pleasure sitting down with you, learning more about Just Drive, helping to share the message, and teaching us all the things that are real helpful to hear, like Deb said, again and again and again.
And it doesn't hurt to hear it over and over, even as a 50-something-year-old woman.
Well, thank you again for having us. I really appreciate it.
Well, check out Just Drive's website. We'll put that on the screen, and certainly check out the apps already built into your phone, so you can start practicing safe driving today.
Yeah.
That's our mission. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in to Chamber Chat, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.